Part 6, The House Band, Chapter 30. Travis. She began, her voice steady, the hum of the diner's refrigerator, a quiet backing track to the most important performance of her life. I can't. The line was silent for a long moment, save for the distant sound of a jukebox and a truck's air brakes. She had expected him to argue, to charm, to cajole. Instead, his voice when it came was quiet. Can't or won't, both, she said, and the truth of it settled in her own heart. What you're offering, it's the dream. It really, Island. And that night in Tucson was one of the best nights of my life. But it's your dream, Travis. It's your bus, your stage, your song. I think I need to build my own. In a diner, there was no mockery in his voice, only a genuine, baffled curiosity. In a diner, she confirmed a smile touching her lips. It's not the Grand Ole Opry, but it's mine. The stage will be mine. The songs will be mine. The mistakes will be mine. She could almost hear him shake his head, a slow cowboy smile in his voice. You're a strange and stubborn woman, Alice Hyatt. I've been told, she said. Well, he sighed, and she could picture him leaning against a payphone, staring out at the endless Texas highway. If you're ever going to build your own stage, you're going to need a decent sound system. He paused. Consider it a going-away present, or a staying-put present, I guess. Before she could protest, he said, the road's calling, Alice. Take care of that voice. And then he was gone. Alice hung up the phone, a strange mix of sadness and relief washing over her. She had closed a door, a big, glamorous, exciting door. But in doing so, she had opened another one. It was a smaller door, a screen door, with a squeaky hinge that led into the back of Mel's diner, but it was all hers. Chapter 31. The transformation of Mel's Diner into Mel's Diner and music was a study in chaotic compromise. Mel, true to form, wanted to do it on a budget that wouldn't cover a weekend's worth of guitar strings. His idea of a stage was a stack of old milk crates covered with a piece of plywood. It's rustic, he argued. It's got character. It's got termites, Mel Alice countered it. Jolene, who had appointed herself creative director of the project, arrived with a book of wallpaper samples and a vision of velvet curtains and mood lighting. We need ambiance, honey. People don't want to hear a heart-wrenching ballad while staring at a ketchup bottle. Vera, meanwhile, was primarily concerned with the safety implications. What about the fire code, she fretted, clutching a pamphlet she'd picked up at the fire station. If we add a stage, does that change our occupancy status? Will the vibrations from the bass guitar compromise the structural integrity of the jukebox? The demolition of the corner booth was a momentous occasion. Mel took the first swing with a crowbar, a ceremonial blow that sent a cloud of dust and fossilized French fries into the air. They worked for a week, a clumsy but determined construction crew. They built a small, sturdy stage raised just a foot off the ground. Jolene, after a fierce battle with Mel, won the right to hang a single, slightly tarnished gold curtain as a backdrop. 2 days before the grand reopening, a delivery truck arrived. 2 enormous speakers, a mixing board, and a box of professional-grade microphones were unloaded onto the sidewalk. The invoice was marked paid in full. There was no note. Alice just smiled. The final touch was the new sign. Mel had hired a man to paint a guitar and a few musical notes next to the familiar coffee cup logo. It looked a little lopsided, but it was a declaration. This was a new place, a new beginning. Chapter 32. The first night was sold out. Every booth, every counter stool was taken. The air for the first time smelled less of frying onions and more of anticipation. The diner regulars were there, of course, looking slightly bewildered by the transformation. But there were new faces, 2 younger people, music lovers, drawn by the buzz that had been building around town. Back in the kitchen, which now doubled as a backstage area, Alice felt a wave of nausea. This was infinitely more terrifying than the festival. In Tucson, she had been a guest. Here, this was her house. These were her people. The risk felt immense. What if they hate it? She whispered to Jolene. What if they just want their chili and want me to shut up? Honey, Jolene said, adjusting the strap on Alice's dress. You could sing the phone book and they'd eat it up with a spoon. Now get out there and knock 'em dead. She walked through the kitchen doors and stepped onto her stage. The wobble was gone. The stage was solid beneath her feet. She looked out at the packed diner. She saw Vera wringing her hands, but smiling. She saw Tommy sitting in the front booth, his face filled with a pride that made her heart swell. And she saw Mel standing by the cash register, trying to look nonchalant but failing miserably. She took a breath and began to sing. And the sound that filled the room was something new. It was the sound of a dream not deferred but rebuilt. It was the sound of a woman who had taken the long way home and found that home was a stage 6 feet wide in the corner of a Greasy Spoon diner on the side of a highway in the middle of the desert. The applause when it came was more than just applause. It was a welcome, it was confirmation, it was the sound of a new song just beginning. Chapter 33, The Diner Found Its New Groove. Wednesday through Saturday nights, the clatter of plates was replaced by the sound of music. The experiment was a success beyond even Mel's most optimistic profit-driven projections. Alice became the heart of the diner in a way she never had been before. She was no longer just the person who brought the food. She was the reason people came. But the success brought its own challenges. The balance she had sought was precarious. She was still a waitress. On music nights, she would sing her first set, then spend the break running from table to table, taking drink orders and placating customers whose burgers were taking too long. She would finish her last song drenched in sweat and emotionally drained, and then spend another hour wiping down tables and tallying receipts. The two Alices, the artist and the server, were in a constant, exhausting battle. One night, a man sat at the counter through both of her sets. He didn't eat, just drank his coffee and watched her with a quiet, appraising look. He was older, dressed in a worn but expensive leather jacket. He looked like he'd seen the inside of 1,000 bars just like this one. After her last song, as she was clearing tables, he motioned her over. "You've got a good voice," he said, his voice a low rasp. "You write your own stuff." Most of it, she said, stacking plates on her arm. "You got a demo?" Alice paused. A demo tape. That was something people on the real road had, not waitresses who sang on the side. "No," she said. He pulled a business card from his wallet and slid it across the counter. "My name is Artie Ziff. I'm a producer out of LA. When you get one, send it to me." He stood up, dropped a 20 on the counter and walked out. Alice picked up the card. The logo was for a small independent record label. It was probably nothing. He probably gave those cards to every singer he saw in every dive bar between Phoenix and Los Angeles. But as she stood there in the messy, wonderful aftermath of another show, the small piece of cardboard felt impossibly heavy in her hand. It felt like another roadmap pointing to a destination she hadn't even dared to imagine. The world, it seemed, was bigger than a tour bus and bigger even than the four walls of Mel's Diner. Part 7, the demo tape chapter, 34, Artie Ziff's business card sat propped against the sugar dispenser on Alice's kitchen table for 3 days. It stared at her during her morning coffee, a small rectangular dare. It was a tangible link to a world that felt as distant as the moon, a world of recording studios contracts and radio play. A world beyond the comfortable, chaotic orbit of Mel's. She finally brought it into the diner, holding it between two fingers as if it might bite. She showed it to Jolene and Vera during a lull in the lunch rush. Jolene snatched at her eyes, widening. "L.A., honey, this is it. I can see it now. We'll need a concept for the album cover. Something earthy but glamorous. Maybe you in a denim jacket leaning against a cactus at sunset." She was already mentally styling the photo shoot. Vera peered at the card nervously. "Does he seem reputable? Alice, did you get references? You have to be so careful with contracts. There could be clauses in the fine print about owning your soul or making you wear flammable costumes. And what about copyright law? You should register all your songs with the Library of Congress before you send anything." Mel, who had been lurking by the grill pretending to scrape grease but was in fact listening to every word, stomped over. "What's that?" he demanded, snatching the card from Jolene. He read the name, his face clouding over. "L.A. producer, huh? So that's the game. You get a little taste of success and now you're looking to fly the coop, just when business is finally picking up." "Mel, it's just a business card," Alice said, exasperated. "He asked for a demo. I don't even have a demo." "A demo," Mel repeated the word, sounding like a disease. "That sounds expensive. That sounds like something that will take your mind off your real job, which is slinging my hash and making sure the salt shakers are full." He slammed the card down on the counter. Don't come crying to me when this Artie Ziff character steals all your songs and you're back here begging for your job. The conversation was over, but the seed was planted. A demo tape. The phrase echoed in Alice's mind. It was the next step, the key to the next door. But as she looked around the diner at Mel's scowling face and Vera's worried one, she realized with a sinking heart that the key might cost more than she could afford. Chapter 35. The reality of making a demo was a cold, hard slap in the face. Alice spent an afternoon calling the 2 recording studios listed in the Phoenix Yellow Pages. The prices they quoted were astronomical figures that might as well have been the distance to Jupiter. Her savings, painstakingly rebuilt after she'd invested in her first guitar amp, would be wiped out by a single day in a professional studio.